in Columbus, while the snake springs and strikes successfully. A repeat performance by Pro Stock's premier pair, and roaring down the racetrack in some radical roadsters. From Orndorff, Eckman, Racing in Granville, Ohio, these stories and more on this edition of NHRA Today. At the heart of every successful Pro Stock racing team beats a 500 cubic inch engine generating over 1,100 horsepower. And although each power plant has its share of standard components, these mechanical marvels are cloaked in mystery. Jetting, timing, porting and profiling, valve lift and duration, induction and compression are just a few of the critical concerns for a Pro Stock engine builder. The altar on which these wizards perform their magic is the dynamometer. And countless hours spent on this test bed yield the fraction of a second gains that spell the difference between success and failure on the racetrack. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of NHRA Today. I'm Steve Evans. We're coming to you from the Ohio headquarters of the top Pontiac team in all of Pro Stock racing, Orndorff, Eckman, and Ike, Jerry Eckman, the driver. In the next half hour, we'll be involved in an actual engine test session, and, of course, we'll bring you up to date on last weekend's Oldsmobile Springnationals. But first, of course, you betcha, let's find out what's hot. Feelings among the Pro Stock contingent at Columbus last week were heating up over the increased use of 5-speed transmissions.
We came to this race with the 5-speed, and before we even went down the track, some of our competitors started a petition to try to ban the transmission.
You're talking about $20,000 expense. A lot of the cars and all the other guys in the category that races Pro Stock, a lot of them can't afford the thing, and they're looking to save the $20,000 to go to the West Coast and race those races along with myself.
These guys are such a bunch of crybabies that if we try anything new, they try to stop it.
I hate the term crybaby because we try to run a professional operation. We work hard to be competitive. My goal here is to give the fans a good show, and we try to run a very first-class operation like all of us do here.
If it's going to make me run quicker and make me go out here and win, I'm going to run it. As long as the rules say it's okay, I'm going to run it.
Naturally, the controversy has fallen squarely into the lap of the NHRA technical department.
We're gathering input from the manufacturers, from a variety of racers, and basically just evaluating whether or not they should continue in this category.
And that's what's hot. Little chance of a transmission controversy in the top fuel category. They are utterly shiftless. I mean, they're high gear only. And they put on quite a show this past weekend at National Trail Raceway just down the road. Here's the first of three Dave McClellan reports.
Top Fuel Eliminator at the Oldsmobile Springnationals got down to business right away as the first pair down the racetrack matched Kenny Bernstein against Mid-South Nationals winner Laurie Johns. At the green, the two cars left together, but then the Budweiser King in the near lane smoked the tires and exploded an engine, giving Laurie another in a series of wins over the Winston points leader.
She certainly has our number. I mean, she's beat us like a drum. We've raced 5 times, and she's won 4 of them. We've only beat her 1 time in 2 years.
The second round matched Laurie's Jolly Rancher Candy's entry against Joe Amato. And at the green, the Valvoline machine in the far lane blasted into an early lead that grew larger on the charge to the finish line. Joe Amato's stunning .499 performance in the heat of midday not only earned him a new track record, but it also gave him the lane choice over Dick LaHaye in the Final Four. 1987 Winston champion LaHaye had disposed of Tommy Johnson Jr. and Jack Ostrander to reach the Final Four. But that would be as far as he would advance, as just after the green, Dick hazed the tires, and Amato moved into the championship round for the 3rd year in a row. Defending champion Frank Hawley had his hands full on the other side of eliminations, as in round 2 against Scott Coletta, the Coors Light driver in the near lane had to come from behind to claim a fiery victory.
It really wasn't that much engine damage. To burn a piston and push the spark plug tube seals out, got a little oil on the headers, and that made it look a lot more spectacular than it really was.
Meeting Hawley in the final four would be Don Prudhomme, who skirted disaster in round one when he skillfully backpedaled his Skoal Bandit to victory over hometown hero Jim Head. Prudhomme then knocked off Eddie Hill's Super Shops machine to move to the final four confrontation with Hawley. Frank deep staged and cut a slightly better reaction time, but then his tires billowed smoke and the Snake was in his fourth final round in 7 races. At the green, Amato reacted first, but as the cars slithered down track, Joe lost traction, and the Snake seized his first national event victory since returning to Top Fuel last year.
And, you know, we just needed a win, needed it real bad, and it came, and all the kids back at Madonna Day School, we're going to take this trophy at Senator Hallway over there.
Well, the victory gave Don Prudhomme the lead in the Winston Points Championship. Joe Amato is second, Kenny Bernstein third, Frank Hawley is fourth, and Laurie Johns number 5.
Other than that first-round smoker against Jim Head, Don Prudhomme's clutch performed flawlessly last weekend. And the Snake is one of a handful of racers who have incorporated recycling into their between-rounds driveline maintenance. Here's Big Daddy Don Garlitz with all the details.
We're in the top of Don Prudhomme's transporter, and we're watching one of his crew members resurface the pressure plate. Now, when you see these cars go down the quarter mile, you'll see a lot of clutch dust come out of the back of them. Well, when that's happening, a lot of damage is taking place inside that clutch can. Well, they replace the disc, and some of the teams replace the floaters, the pressure plate, and the flywheel. But Don Prudhomme, they resurface their pressure plate, floater, and flywheel. This unit is a wet grinder. You can see it running here. It brings this surface back to absolutely smooth. Now, they can do that to these units 2 or 3 times before the unit has to be thrown away. Now, that's very economical, and it's also very time-saving because it saves them from having to ship these units off someplace and wait for them to return.
That is definitely not a job for the claustrophobic. Okay, Dyno Maestro Dale Icke is at the keyboard. He's going to fire this engine up, get some baseline numbers, and when we come back, we'll see how much power we can pull from that potent Pontiac.
NHRA Today is being brought to you by Castrol GTX, the motor oil that provides maximum protection against viscosity and thermal breakdown.
Back to Granville, Ohio, in the shop of the Jerry Eckman-driven Pennzoil Pontiac Pro Stocker, where it's dyno time. (1,066 horsepower at 8,000 RPM. They're not going to be happy with that while they make some changes. Let's see some Pro Stock power in action. Here's Dave McClellan's report from last weekend's Spring Nationals.
Pro Stock at the Oldsmobile Spring Nationals had a familiar finale, but the earlier acts offered some center stage spotlight time for some members of the supporting cast. Take, for example, Gordy Rivera. In round one, the Arizona driver slapped a hole shot on Ohio and Larry Morgan that provided enough of a lead to just hold off the Castrol Cutlass at the finish line.
I thought that maybe he was going to pull a little better hole shot than he did, you know, and I was kind of like really getting super ready, but my little Asco Beretta came right through there.
Gordy's opponent in round two was Jim Yates, who surprised everyone by qualifying his Fram Bendix Autolite Pontiac fourth. And at the green, Yates in the far lane served up a hole shot on Rivera that sent the Beretta home and the Trans Am into the final four. His opponent would be the winner of the race between Winston points leader Darrell Alderman and one of our hosts, Jerry Eckman. At the green, both cars left as one. But as they worked their way down track, Eckman faltered and Darrell and the Dodge moved on to do battle with Yates. Once again, the Mopar machine proved dominant, cutting an excellent reaction time and powering to its 6th final round spot in 7 national events. The other side of the eliminations ladder featured both of the AC Delco Oldsmobiles of Warren Johnson, and all signs pointed to a possible confrontation in the final four between the two teammates. Warren obliged by beating Mark Powick in round number 2, but standing in Scott Jeffreyon's way was the 9-time Spring Nationals champion Bob Glidden and his Ford. That second round race was decided right at the start as Jeffreyon in the far lane cut the better reaction time that provided enough of a lead to hold off Glidden's quicker elapsed time. So with teammates meeting in the final four, would there be any team orders?
Never has been any team orders, never will be. I'm in this business to make a living, and whatever it takes to get one of these AC Delco Oldsmobiles into the finals is what I've got to do.
What WJ did was react 1/100th of a second quicker than Scott. But the race was really decided when Jeffrey On got out of the near lane groove and dropped off the pace. Warren's win set the stage for another in the series of Dodge Oldsmobile Championship struggles, with Alderman holding lane choice by only 0.02 of a second. At the green, Darrell held a slim advantage that remained steady to the finish line, and the Dodge's margin of victory was a mere 0.18 of a second. Darrell, you're on your march to the second Winston title in a row. Can you keep it up?
I wouldn't say that we're in no world championship seat yet, but I certainly hope that we can keep the same pace up.
Well, the pace has included 4 wins thus far this season, and Darrell Alderman has got the lead in the Winston points chase. Warren Johnson second, Jerry Eckman third, Bob Glidden in fourth, and Scott Jeffrey On has moved into number 5.
Well, back here in the dyno room, Dale Icke, like every other pro stock engine builder, trying to find enough horsepower to stop that Dodge of Alderman's. Now, what changes would you make today, Dale?
Normally, the changes would make in a normal tune-up would be ignition timing, valve lash. We'd move the cam back and forth and just fine-tune the motor for maximum power.
What about when you're in a development process?
Development comes more into cylinder heads, port volumes, intake manifold lengths, things like that.
A very time-consuming but very necessary process.
Castrol presents the GTX Pipeline, the latest news from the world of drag racing.
Fans of those exciting two-wheel missiles, the Pro Stock bikes, got some good news in Columbus. The Wax Shop announced its sponsorship of an all-star shootout event to be held at the U.S. Nationals in September.
We're going to have the top 8 riders this year, that top 8 points, and then next year we're going to have the top 8 qualifiers, just like the normal Big Bud shootout and so forth. What we're trying to do is create a little more promotion for the Pro Stock motorcycles, because in the last 2 years, the parity and the professionalism of the Pro Stock motorcycles has ridden 200%.
Now the matchup beside John Patterson will either be the Wild 8-hole.
Welcome back to NHRA Today. I'm with the founder of this Pro Stock racing team, Bill Orndorff. And Bill, recently you and Jerry and some others had to make a major decision in your lives.
Yeah, basically, Steve, I don't think we had much of a choice with the competitiveness of NHRA drag racing. It just required a full-on effort. And to be located centrally here in the Midwest area.
You sold your business in California, your homes. I mean, you're committed.
That's right. Built a new home right here in Granville. We just finished up the shop and just basically got our dyno in place, and we're looking forward to making some gains.
Well, I hope it gives you the edge you're looking for.
I hope so too, Steve.
And you know, no less committed to drag racing were the sportsman racers who competed in the Springnationals last weekend. Here's Bob Fry's report.
You know, with about 700 cars entered at Columbus, it kind of gets the guy's juices flowing. Makes you want to get in a car, get on the track and compete. Well, realizing my limitations, I figured if I'm going to race, I might as well start out small. And this little dragster is about the smallest thing I could find. One thing I do like about this car, when you get on the track, not that I've actually been on the track, but you get out there in the sun and the fresh air hit you in the face, just like these guys and those roadsters must feel when they go down the track.
Some drivers love that feeling of a roadster so much that they never leave them. Take Tom Snyder, for instance. He has been racing for 17 years and campaigning the same car since 1979.
We just like it because it's one of them ones that kind of talk to you. You do something and it'll answer you back, whether it's good or bad.
Roadsters have become a hit with competitors because of the different types of combinations they can use.
It's basically a funny car chassis, 125-inch wheelbase. The motor sits pretty much where they do, 3-speed transmission. We use a 504 cubic inch, pretty similar to a Pro Stock engine, a little different combination bore stroke-wise to get the torque that we need for the 3-speed.
Basically, it's like a Pro Stock car. It is a Pro Stock car with a 33 body on it.
A newcomer to the Roadster ranks is Steve Ambrose, who won the Gator Nationals earlier this year. Now, Steve recently parked that successful car in favor of a Roadster because he feels the dragster is no longer competitive.
Maybe when in the fall, when it gets real fast, it will be a little more competitive again. It's a little short on the index right now for the heat. Like here, we'd be lucky to qualify here with that car, so that's why we had to retire it and try a new approach.
The Comp Eliminator final saw Snyder's 23 Roadster come up against Todd Patterson's 91 Lumina. Now, after some problems with the transmission on the starting line, Patterson went on to pick up his second national win of the year.
I got an air-shifted transmission. I went to put the car in third gear, and it wouldn't go out of engage out of low gear. So I had 1,000 thoughts running through my mind. And after 2 or 3 stabs at it, it finally went to third gear and got to do my normal routine on the starting line. And just very fortunate to beat Tom.
Kentucky's Glenn Gagel battled South Carolina's Mike Say for bragging rights in the Superstock final, and it was a Gonzo Gagel who got the winner's light in the far lane.
First qualifying run, first time I've ever qualified national event, and first time I've ever got in and won a race like this. I've never won a drag race, been racer for 20 years.
Here are other winners from the Oldsmobile Spring Nationals. The TRW All-Star Race was also held at the Spring Nationals, and here are the winners from that event. Now, later this season, NHRA Today will devote an entire half-hour program to this event. For NHRA Today, I'm Bob Fry.
How would you like to see all the excitement of the 1991 U.S. Nationals from an insider's perspective? Have you ever wanted to experience the luxury of the Top Eliminator Club? Well, all this and more can be yours courtesy of Diamond P Sports. Just send a stamped self-addressed envelope to the address on your screen for an official entry form. The winner will receive airfare for 2, hotel accommodations, use of a rental car, plus 2 Top Eliminator Club passes. This offer expires July 30th, so send for your entry form today. Welcome back to Central Ohio, and I'm sure every drag racing fan recognizes this man, Pro Stock driver Jerry Eckman. And Jerry, as hard as Dale flogs that dyno, it doesn't give you all the answers.
It certainly doesn't, Steve. Sometimes you've got to test. In fact, we were out testing today, and some of the things we learn are really difficult to apply to the car. Certain adjustments lend themselves to different track conditions, and applying that power to the track is the real key. And, of course, I'm not going to divulge everything we learned today, but nonetheless, it was pretty successful.
Did you ever think about driving a nitro funny car?
Yeah, about that long, Steve.
Well, that's about how long it took the nitro breed to cover the quarter mile last weekend in Columbus, Ohio. Here's Dave's final report.
The area around National Trail Raceway is some of the finest farmland in America. And in round 1 of Funny Car at the Oldsmobile Spring Nationals, Glenn Micras got an unexpected close-up look. Paired with Richard Hartman's Rebestus Cutlass, Glenn took an easy victory in the far lane, but then the chutes failed to deploy, and the JP1 Special went agricultural.
When I went through the sand trap, it slowed it down pretty good, and then when I went out into the cornfield, it just kind of slid along there. I didn't figure it'd flip over because she had her nose down pretty good still, so.
Unfortunately, Micras Oldsmobile was too damaged to continue. The man who benefited the most from Glenn's withdrawal from competition was Mike Dunn. Mike soloed the Snickers Dodge Daytona into the Final 4, where he would meet the winner of the race between John Force and Ed McCulloch. The 1991 season has been a struggle for the ace and his Otter Pops Olds, and a win over arch-rival Force was vital for the team. But it was not to be, as the Castrol Cutlass in the far lane jumped into an early lead that secured the win and a spot in the Final 4 for the defending event champion. Force held lane choice, and as the cars staged, Dunn knew his Holtz rode on his reaction time. And at the flash of green, Mike cut a phenomenal reaction time and was gone, while Force fought for control in his wake. The other side of the eliminations featured one of the closest races of the day, as Winston Invitational winner Al Hoffman met up with California school teacher Gary Dencham. As the lights turned green, Dencham's California Discount Warehouse's Cutlass assumed the lead in the near lane. But just as the cars entered the speed trap, Hoffman edged ahead for the win. In round 2, the Blower Drive Services Ford Probe met up with Gator Nationals winner Mark Oswald. And as the cars left the starting line, the In-N-Out Burger Trans Am in the far lane moved easily ahead and into the Final 4. Mark's opponent would be #1 qualifier Jim White, who had knocked off Gary Litton and Dominic Santucci in earlier rounds. In the Final 4, the Hawaiian Punch Daytona moved briskly into the lead at the green. And when Oswald lost traction in the near lane, White was in the finals for the first time since the Arizona Nationals. The championship round was a duel between Dodge Daytonas. And at the green, the two cars left together. But at the finish line, it was Dunn on top for his second win in a row.
been a good win. We wanted to come into this race and stay in second points and pick up a few rounds on John Force, and we were able to do that and coming away with a win. It was a real good weekend for the Snickers Kmart Daytona.
Mike Dunn's moved into second, right behind John Force. Third is Jim White, Mark Oswald fourth, and Ed McCulloch number 5.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this week's show. But join us in just 7 days when some of our drag racing stories will come from Canada. For all of us here at NHRA Today, I'm Steve Evans. Thanks for joining us on TNN. We leave you with the never-ending quest for power.
NHRA Today has been brought to you by Castrol GTX, engineered for today's smaller cars. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by the special offer from Diamond P.
For years, you've all...
NHRA Today is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.